All right. Well, today we're going to do something fun. Actually, we always do something fun. But we are going to go through the bag and talk about what we think the best brand is for each category. So driver, irons, wedges, putter, and let's also include the ball. So yeah, let's get right into it and start with driver. I'm a little worried that we're going to have similar brands for a lot of these. So I'm keeping my finger crossed that this is actually an interesting segment.
I just want to make sure I understand the rules. Are we talking about like the single best brand right now, or our preference, or the like lifetime of what we have played?
I was thinking what we think just the best brand, like without thinking too much, what's the first brand that comes to mind? And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about it. See if after a conversation, we might change our minds.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, let's start with driver, the most important club in our bag.
That's easy. TaylorMade. Hands down TaylorMade. I have, and I've said this before, I have loved the Titleist drivers. I have played Callaway drivers here and there. I used to love the Ping drivers, played all of them. So with the exception of like Cobra and Mizuno, I think and PXG. I don't count PXG as like a major brand. PXG people might beg to differ, but I've played pretty much every major brand driver out there. And I always come back to either Titleist or TaylorMade. But this year, or the last few years, I would say, for me, TaylorMade has like really been winning. And so I would say between, and we didn't really say woods, but as the general like metal wood driver family, TaylorMade always performs the best for me. And I always want them in the bag.
I was going back and forth with this. If you've been a listener to the podcast for a while, you know that I've played TaylorMades almost my entire life, except for maybe like the last 4 or 5 years where I've switched over to Callaway. I feel like, especially with the new carbon face, I have not liked TaylorMade drivers. So I do disagree with what you said about them really hitting their stride the last couple of years. I have never loved the carbon face feel. However, right now on the way is a TaylorMade QI4D, and I am switching back over to TaylorMade this year. And so I guess I'm also going to have to say that the best brand is TaylorMade, considering that it's going to be my gamer this year. And also just in history, I've played TaylorMades most of my life. Now, the thing that I love about TaylorMades generally is the fact that I like to think that they're pretty innovative compared to the other brands. They like to kind of stretch the boundaries more than other brands. And some might call it marketing, but I actually do think that a lot of their innovations have helped me, especially in the adjustability side. So yeah, I think it's definitely TaylorMade. This year though, the QI4D, the carbon face, I finally think is an upgrade from the years past. Roy, you and I've talked about this offline, but they don't sound like a carbon face because the previous models had this muted thud. And so even on great strikes, I didn't feel confident that it was going to go the distance that I wanted to go. But this year, it almost sounds titanium-y. Not quite there, but it was a lot more confidence boosting. So that was one of the main reasons why I decided to go for a TaylorMade this year.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the carbon face, but let me counter with twist face. Love the twist face because I rarely find the center of the, it's funny because I remember when you and I first started playing golf together. It's been quite a while now, but the guys that we played with, like, especially when pandemic happened and post-pandemic, as the golf courses started opening up, you guys were always like, oh yeah, you're such a good driver, which like the entirety of my golf career, that was the one club that everybody knew me as like completely volatile and like inconsistent. And that was really when I like doubled down on using, and again, I go back and forth on now either Titleist or TaylorMade. And I think honestly, it comes down to what year I'm upgrading the driver and whether it's an off year for Titleist or not, right? Like that really, I feel like that's it. But before that, when I was like wild and still, I was one of, if not the longest hitter out of my group of friends that I played with on the East Coast, but I was crazy wild. And that was when I was playing Pings and Callaways and everything else. So I would say Twist Face gets a stamp of approval for me. And that's why TaylorMade will stay at the top, at least for a while. We'll see what Titleist does next time.
So I did try Titleist when I went to check out drivers and they were nice, but the fact that they were already been out for a year and there's a new model coming out next year made it really hard for me to commit. It's like this weird like psychological thing, knowing that it's just been out. And so whether it's true or not, like other clubs have made improvements during that one calendar year. And so I think timing wise, Titleist and I have just never matched for driver. But I did really look at Cobra as well as Callaway this year. And so I know I'm kind of, going off on a little bit of a tangent, but the Cobra, I was actually hitting it pretty straight. And so I think the Optum technology is working for me, but I didn't love the feel. There was a bit of a muted sense from the Cobra drivers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going straight, but I was pushing everything. So I was pushing everything about like 5 to 10 yards to the right. And I wasn't able to turn over, which is great. And it was going straight, but yeah, just that feel made it very difficult for me to jump into the Cobra. For the Callaway, they have a new face this year. So it's like a 3-layered where it is titanium, they added carbon, and then they added something else in between. The biggest challenge for the Callaway is that I think it's in my mind psychologically. The Triple Diamond, which is the club that I have been playing, and is best fit for, is 430 cc's. So we talked about this before. It's like a millimeter smaller than 460 cc. But that has been playing a psychological effect on me. And my driver has not been the strength that it has been in the past. So I really want to go back to 460cc. And Callaway has something in between their base model and the Triple Diamond, which is the Triple Diamond Max. But the Triple Diamond Max was giving me a little bit too much spin, no matter how I tried to play around with the numbers. So lowering the loft, changing the weighting around, it just wasn't helping me that much. And so I decided that if I'm gonna go with something, I'm gonna go with something that feels the most familiar and comfortable. And that was the TaylorMade. And surprisingly, I'm not playing their low spin version. I actually got the regular QI4D, and I was hitting it farther consistently than the LS for some reason. And again, it might be psychological, but also the fact that there's 4 weights compared to 2 just felt like I could adjust it to fit me better while I'm playing it this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went with the base model, and that's the first time I'm playing a base model, I think in like 7-8 years. I think the last time I played a base model was like the Sim.
Oh, wow, it's been a while. I can't wait to see you play the QI40. Like I'm excited for you to have it, but I'm also excited because I kind of want one.
Yeah.
But you're going to change the shaft, right? That's what you said. You're going to change your aftermarket shaft?
Yeah, but oddly, I was hitting the blue, which is like the regular release Reacts. I was hitting that really, really well. And so we'll see. If I am to switch, it would be a Ventus Blue, because I realized that because now they have closure rate in the GC Quad Maxes that a lot of these stores have. My closure rate I was actually closing the face a lot more than I used to when I got fit for a Ventus Black. And so I think maybe that might have been also affecting my driver consistency these last like 2 years. And also the fact that like I'm losing, driver head speed. I think I'm down about 2.5 miles per hour. And so I think blue might be the best fit. And lucky for me, someone I know has a blue, so I could probably try it.
That's what I'm saying. Lucky for me, somebody's going to get a QI4D with the blue. No, that's awesome. Yeah, they're all their marketing hype aside, I feel like TaylorMade just always puts out really good drivers. They have some off years, sure. But, I think consistently starting from, back when they were actual metal woods, the R7, I talk about that a lot, right? Like that was one of, if not still a cult following, or they made the mini driver. That was basically a remake of that driver.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, they've done some really innovative things. Best driver for sure.
And I think this is, again, it shouldn't affect me that much, but TaylorMade dominates tour usage, but not only on contract players, but on non-contract players as well. And especially this year with the QI4D. And so I know that had a little bit of an effect on me psychologically, but yeah, out of the ones I tested, the QI4D, I think by far was the most consistent for me.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's jump now to irons. This is where I feel you and I might be a little, like we'll have similarities, but we might come to a different conclusion. But what's the brand for you? I mean, I already know your brand, but what is the brand for our audience?
The rest of this podcast can just be Titleist for me. So no, but for the last 3 iron sets that I bought and used have been Titleist. Before that, I was playing Mizuno for a little bit. Before that, I was in TaylorMade's. That sounds right. And then before that, I was in the Tour Action 7s, the Cleveland Golfs.
Mm.
That was like one of my favorite irons as well. But best brand, Titleist, hands down.
My best brand is Mizuno.
Yeah.
You've played Mizunos before.
Yes.
What gets Titleist over Mizunos for you?
I think the Titleist head shape is just a little bit more traditional, right? Just slightly, right? Mizuno has this like, I don't even know how to describe it. If you look at like the toe, right? There's this like, the way that the toe curves is very distinctly Mizuno. Like you can tell almost every time when you put it down. And I liked it. It's very soft. It's very buttery. Like, I think I like Mizuno. They're top 3 for me for sure. I feel like with irons, they have to perform, but they also have to feel really good and they have to look really good. Like that and maybe not in that order. It's maybe like performance, look good, feel good. I don't know. But to me, Titleist just looks a little bit better. I can go either way, Mizuno or Titleist. But for performance, I also have played better with Titleist clubs.
I can agree with you that I think at least the current models, Titleist looks the best. From the top line to the way that it looks at it dressed, I prefer the T100s over the JPX Tour lines. On the feel side, I do think Mizuno feels a little bit better. And the part that scares me a little bit about the Titleist is there are shots where I feel, wow, the ball just like sprung from the club face. And I think I was playing, one of the guys that I play with, he has T100s and I play the same specs. It's actually not you. There's someone else that also plays the exact same specs. And when I tried his clubs, I think we decided to swap irons and we played like 3 holes. And out of those 3 holes, 2 of the holes, I felt like I flushed the shot and it went longer than I thought it was going to go. And so I don't know what it is. I love it at the range, but when I've played the T100s on the course, it just went farther than I thought. And so because of that, I gave the nod a little bit, and maybe it's just familiarity, right? But I gave the nod to the Mizuno because I know my numbers with the Mizunos. And even if I'm probably due for a new iron set because I'm playing the JPX Tour 919s, which means it came out in 2019, right? And I got it when it came out. I did try the 923s, the 925s, and I'm still able to hit my numbers with those new models at the range as well. So yeah, performance-wise, I gave a slight nod to Mizunos.
Were you getting that distance gain with all of the clubs, all of the irons up and down the bag, or was it just a few shots here and there?
No, I mean, I didn't really get to hit like across the bag. It was with mid irons though.
I wonder if you just hit further with T100s.
Maybe. Do they? I think they might have slightly stronger lofts than the JPXs, huh?
It's the 100s, right? Not the 150s.
Yeah, I had the T100s, or I tried the T100s.
Yeah, it should be. It should be slightly longer. I think maybe a degree or 2. Yeah. The one brand that we didn't talk about that I would say, like, in theory, I would want to say that they're one of the best iron brands, but I've never owned one and I've never played it, is the Miras.
So I actually have, Miras are there. Miras are on my top list.
Yeah.
The reason why the Miras don't make my favorite is it's just not affordable. They're like the Ferraris of golf clubs. And I will say that they did get acquired by a private equity firm. And after they got acquired by a private equity firm, they started expanding their line. Whereas before, it was either you had blades, the MBs, or you had their CBs, the cavity backs. Now they have so many different lines, and I have tried some of their newer lines and I actually didn't like it. The feel is great, but it is no longer the Mira that I knew. Even the top line is a little bit like thicker, and they're still premium. They still feel great, but I didn't love the newer iterations. Also from the look, I think classic Miras have a very classic look, and it just screams, Japanese artisan. The newer models like have this new modern look to it that doesn't have that craftsmanship look anymore, and that's why that and the cost is why Miras have been dropped down a little bit on my list.
So that's a really good point, and it kind of leads me to a different question, because I think when you and I talk about irons, it's always blades or like the players category, right?
Yeah.
Would you give the same answer if I said you have to pick a game improvement iron? Like what would your favorite or top game improvement iron category be? Or is it the same up and down all of the different categories for you?
For game improvements, I don't love Mizuno's game improvement irons.
Mhm.
And so that list would change. I do like Titleist game improvement irons. I do like the TT 200s.
Yeah. I would say like irons is where like TaylorMade for me, like they're fine, but they're all I feel like their irons are all marketing, even more so than everything else. The one brand I will give a head nod to for their game improvement or yeah, I guess that's the category is Ping. I feel like they're consistent. They're good. Like I wouldn't play Ping irons. That weird little like notch in the hosel just bothers me. I don't know why. It bothers me enough that I will probably never game those. But yeah, I feel like they deserve a head nod, but I would still pick Titleist because I think that they have a solid club for every level, or at least a solid iron for every level.
Let's say I have to buy a game improvement iron. I think though, I would look at the TaylorMade P790s. I felt like they've always been very easy to hit for me, and they're not so thick at address. It is definitely, compared to the clubs we played, thick, but it's not, gross looking. Yeah. And so that's kind of a dark horse, is the P790s.
That's a good call. All
right. I mean, you already said it for wedges, but tell me why you love the Vokeys. Because I don't love the Vokeys.
I mean, technically, this is not Titleist. This is Vokey by Titleist.
It's all a Cushnet.
Fair. This is one of those, I understand the Vokeys and their grinds. And like for me, like there's a familiarity at this point. Like I've just been playing Vokeys for so long that I always that's what I go back to. And I just like the look of having Titleist irons. I know there's a lot of words that you could say for somebody whose back looks like that, but I don't feel like I get enough versatility and grinds for all of the other brands, which I know is not factually. No, I think that is true.
No,
I think Vokey does.
It's correct.
Yeah, Vokey does give you the most versatile grind types, and I've always liked that because it's let me experiment with like my lob versus my sand versus my gap, which like what do I want to do? There was a time that I actually had 2 sets of wedges, and if it was like after it rained and it was a little more wet, like I would bring one set versus other because it was like a higher bounce. So that's one. And then the other thing is like, I feel like it's very consistent, really good performance. Their off years are not that bad. And their great years are just like stellar. So it's like a comfort and confidence and consistency thing for me.
Okay. A little bit of pushback on the so many grinds. Once you find your grind, it's not like you're changing it, right? And I think the grind that most people play, other brands have as well. Vokeys have I would consider them professional grinds that amateurs should not play. And they have 6 grinds? And out of the 6 grinds, 4 of them, amateurs should not play them. And so,
which ones should amateurs not be playing?
You're putting me on the spot. I'm going to have to look at the numbers. It's been a while. Should we look at it right now?
Yeah, let's look at it because I'm actually really curious because I think I have played all of them. And it's not that I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just genuinely curious, like which ones do you think amateurs shouldn't be playing?
Yeah. Okay. D grind, I don't think amateurs should play. T grind, I don't think amateurs should play. I guess 3.
So you're okay with the M, the F,
and the K. Yeah.
Okay. I could see that. I play an M.
Because a lot of them are meant to make it easier for you to manipulate the club face.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of bounce, a lot of versatility. And I feel like most amateurs don't utilize it anyways. And by having that grind and by saying it's versatile, they try to be versatile when they shouldn't be. And it ends up harming their score more. And so I think that amateurs should stick to simpler grinds.
I would buy that argument for most people. And I'm not saying I'm good enough to utilize them, but I think I've experimented enough to utilize them because I've bought every single one at some point. Like I said, I had like 2 separate sets, one with a higher bounce and one with like, if it's the middle of summer, it's like baked and really firm. I want the lower bounces. So yeah, at this point, maybe I'm not doing as much experimentation, but I loved that for a while. I was like, oh, this isn't working for me. Let me go try a different grind. And then I would go try one. Do
you have M grind on all your wedges?
No, I have F, M, and I forget the last one. I think the last one is an S.
Okay. S you can kind of, I think, get away with. I think from like sand shots.
Yeah.
Like bunker shots, you could use S.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. My issue with Vokeys. Well, let me start up by what I love about Vokeys. My number one wedge brand, it's going to be very surprising, is actually TaylorMade. And I've played TaylorMade wedges for the last 2-3 cycles. I have their high toe for my 60 degree. And then I have the MG3s for my 52 and my 56. The one thing that Vokeys have TaylorMade's beat is the feel. My biggest complaint about TaylorMade wedges that they're cast, right? And so because of that, it's very clicky. So I think that is my biggest complaint about my wedges. But from a spin perspective and around the green, I've actually found them to be more consistent than the Vokeys. The Vokeys, I don't know why, but from time to time, I hit shots, especially around the green or like half shots, where I feel like it should check and it doesn't. And so that's one of the main reasons why I started experimenting away from Vokeys. And I found TaylorMade's to be the ones that work out for me. Now, the thing about TaylorMade's is their faces are raw. And so mine have a bit of rust patina on it. And I do like that everything is machine milled, which on the feel side, I don't love, but I do like that everything is very, very precise. One of the issues that I've had with Vokeys in the past is I've had a fitter that I was really close to at one point. He would measure how open or closed a Vokey is, and you see slight variations from one wedge to the other. But when I'm buying a brand new wedge, I want to know exactly what it is. But I will admit they're the best looking wedge.
Yeah.
And there is actually a set of Vokey wedges that they only release in Japan that I really want.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I've seen it. It's I forget what it's called. But yeah, they looked really, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I've never hit them. It's purely for the look. And I feel like it goes back to like older Vokeys where it just has this very clean, classic look. And the Japanese version has that. So I'm always looking for someone that's going to go to Japan and be like, hey, can you buy me those?
Do I know anybody? Maybe I'll go to Japan. I don't know. We'll see. Get a set of Miras and Vokeys.
Yeah. Now there is an underrated brand, which are Cleveland's. I've tried Cleveland's in the past and they're solid. I think they're very underrated. They're usually also much cheaper than Vokeys or TaylorMade wedges. I don't know about this year, but in the past they have been. And I think for mid-handicappers, they are a little bit more forgiving. But like the last ones I tried with the zip cores, like the RTX 6s, I think, they are a little thicker than typical wedges, but they are more forgiving.
Yeah, it's funny because Cleveland is one of those, like, I feel like they've been around forever, but they're also consistent, but also not like one of the top performing brands ever. Like I said, the Cleveland Tour Action 7s were one of my favorite irons. And interestingly, I've always known or thought of Cleveland as like the wedge brand. Yeah. Right? Until it was Vokeys for me. But, to me, Cleveland are just synonymous with wedges. So I would say for me, they're like, if I ever had to play something that's not Vokeys, not TaylorMade, I would probably go to Cleveland's. But for now, fortunately, Bob is still making clubs. So we're good.
Nice. Well, this next category is where I think we might be the most different. But let's talk putters. I mean, I know your brand.
Okay. But in my defense, so obviously it's Scotty. Again, not Titleist, Scotty. Still a Cushionet. In my lifetime, I have bought, I think, 5 Scotties. Right now, I own 2. My parents now also have my other Scotties, and they're clubs now. I have bought and played TaylorMade, the Spider. I have played the White Hots, which, again, I don't know why. I just didn't like them, the Odyssey White Hots from way back. The only brand that I want to put in running for me, but I've never played it and never owned one is Lab, right? Especially the OZ1i specifically, right? But short of that, and I've gone to obviously like every golf store and hit every putter out there. There was a time that I wanted to be into Bettinardies, just didn't work out for me. And I just came back to Scotty every single time, except for that one year where it was that insert where it was just like a piece of glue.
3M tape.
Yeah. That's what it was. The 3M tape.
Yeah.
Wasn't a fan of the 3M tape year, but outside of that, Scotty's always been solid for me.
My number one right now is obviously Lab. I play a Lab putter. I love the technology. The one thing I've consistently said I don't love is the feel. And I still on lag putts don't put enough power into my putter. I have to hit it a lot harder. And then sometimes I'll put too much and then it'll go past like 5 feet. So other than lag putts, 15 feet and above, I think Lab is, at least right now for me, the number one brand. I am very curious to try the DF3i, but they don't have it for arm lock yet. And that's why I saw it at the store, but I was like, I'm not going to try it until they come out with an arm lock version, because what if I really, really like it, but I can't buy it, right? And so, yeah, I love Lab. But my second favorite, surprisingly again, is TaylorMade. I really like their insert. I think their insert is my favorite insert. If you can incorporate the TaylorMade Pure Roll insert into a Lab, that would be the perfect putter for me. And, TaylorMade acquired Adams Golf, who had the patent to Pure Roll for that insert. And so whenever I try the Spider, or the last putter that I used for a while was a TaylorMade TP Juno, which is a blade putter. It basically just looks like a Newport, but it has the Pure Roll insert. And that was my gamer for the longest time. My brother-in-law plays that now. But yeah, that's actually my number 2 because of the insert. Scotty Cameron is there, but not for their off-the-shelf putters. As I've mentioned, I've owned their 009s, and I really love just the handmade, hand-ground 009 putters. So that's there. Another brand that was there before was actually Even Roll. Even Roll for me, when it comes to putter, it's about consistency. I could look past the look. Obviously, because I'm playing a Lab, I can look past a lot of things, but consistency has to be there. And I think Even Roll was the one putter in the past where I felt was very consistent for me. I knew what I had to do on each putt, but I haven't tried them for like 5-6 years. So yeah, that's why they're no longer in that list. But yeah.
Do you remember the Titleist putter? It was super thin. It was like, oh God, it was like half, it was a blade, but it was like half the width of the Newport line.
I think I know what you're talking about.
And not the bullseye.
But was it like a Newport style, or was it a different style?
No, it wasn't a Newport style. It was a pure Titleist. God, I wish I remember what it was. I always go back, and every few years I try to find one. And I always forget the name of it. It sends me down this weird rabbit hole.
Look up the Model 3 or the Design 3. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Yes, the Design 3. A friend of mine had the Design 3 refinished, right? So it looked new, but it was the same original one. And for some reason, whenever I played with his putter, like I felt like I was controlling it so well. I could control the speed so well, which is so weird because it is like anti-technology, right? It literally has like no technology in it other than it's a piece of metal. But that is like, for me, like the pinnacle of what I want to try other than the OZ1i. And even though they're like polar opposites. But yeah, I always go back every few years and I'm like, oh, could I find one for sale? But that's what it is. It's the Studio Design 3.
Yeah. You can find a lot of them in really bad condition. Yeah. So if you want to refinish one, but it's very hard to find one in really good condition. I also have a friend who I believe refinished his, but it's so pretty. And he's a huge Laker fan. And so the way that he refinished it is if the sun hits it right, it kind of has this purplish hue into it. And so it's really, really pretty. But it's a very pretty putter. For me, though, I've never putt well with it. I've actually tried my friends a few times, and I'm like, I don't know why you play this. So maybe maybe you're really into looks.
It's a feel thing. Yeah, right? I think it's like you just feel every little nuance, and not in a good way necessarily, right? Like it's just, but yeah, no, I would say that would be the only one that I would look for.
Yeah, well, let's jump into the last category, which is ball. Are you? Yes, you are.
Yeah, 100%. It's like my top 3 balls are all Titleist. Titleist, Pro V1, Pro V1X, Pro V1X left dash. It's like, no. There was like a time in my life where I just experimented with a new ball, probably like every other week. Like a buddy of mine, we would just go to Golfsmith, right? This is before I was married, this is before he had kids. We'd literally just like spend our Saturdays at Golfsmith after a round of golf. My favorite ball ever was the Nike Resin Black. I used to play that ball like religiously. And then when they announced that they were stopping, I like literally drove to Golfsmith and just bought boxes of them so that I would have them. And I know the original like resin, they have them out there, but unfortunately they lost me because in that time I went back to Titleist. I tried Chrome, the Chrome Softs, tried all the Bridgestones. Big fan of Bridgestone, but ultimately, like I just come back to Pro Vs. Like it's the consistency, it's the feel, it's the performance. Like always just does what I think it's going to do. And even on my mishits, like it does what I think the mishit should do. So for me, Pro V1s all the way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Pro V1s as well. I used to play the Pro V1Xs, and then there was, I forgot what year it was, but they kind of swapped the characteristics. And so after that, I switched over to the Pro V1s. I did play the Pro V1X left dash for a while, but it was a little bit too firm. I didn't love the feel of it. And also they were really hard to find. So for a while, like people were selling them for like double the price. There is one ball that I got to try, I think couple months ago we were playing and we played with a Callaway rep and he gave me a sleeve of the Chrome Tour Triple Diamonds. They sit kind of in between the Pro V1 and the Pro V1X and they were nice, but not enough around the green. But I really like them, everything except that, because they did feel slightly more firm-ish than the Pro V1s that I'm used to. And so around the green, that played a bit of a mental like game with me, the fact that it was a little bit firmer. But I think that's the only other ball that I've tried recently. Before then, I did go through like Bridgestones. The Bridgestone was my gamer for about 2 years. I played the Tour BX, and that also had a bit of a left dash feel where it was firmer, it was straighter, but around the green, it didn't quite have enough spin. But I would just have to, play for it to roll out a little bit more. And that became a challenge though when there wasn't a lot of green to work with. So that was the main reason why I swapped to the Pro V1s. But yeah, Titleist is king when it comes to golf balls.
Yeah. Okay. So for the sake of argument, let's take all of the Titleists off the table. Nothing that starts with Pro V. What golf ball do you go and play this weekend?
It would probably be the Chrome Tour Triple Diamonds.
Okay. Well, let's take that one off too. Just because you have to be able to find it, right? And if I remember, that's still like impossible to find, right?
I think they're now this year. It's a lot more available on retail.
Okay,
but last year it was tough to find.
But it would be the Triple Diamonds for you then.
I think so. But that's it's cheating a little bit because that's the only other golf ball that I've really tried in the last like 2-3 years. Yeah, for me, for balls, I just want to know what it's going to do and how it's going to feel when I hit it correctly. And that's why I don't experiment with balls as much once I find one that I really like. Now, the interesting thing though about Titleist is they will change the quality of their balls depending on the year. So I haven't paid attention too much to the newest versions, but for a while in the past, I would be very specific to a year model. I think it was the 2019 Pro V1s that I really, really liked. But yeah, now I just play whatever.
Yeah. I wanted to like the AVXs.
I remember you playing them for a while.
Yeah, but it was just like, I don't know, something about them. It was like, it was neither the Pro V or the Pro V1X. And so it was this weird, like, I didn't really quite understand where it stood with me and it just didn't feel right. I think it was a little harder. Or firmer, I should say. And so it wasn't a big fan. Yeah.
Because the AVX, if I recall correctly, it was to lower your ball flight a little bit and it was supposed to go farther than the Pro V1s, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. A little bit more penetrating. Yeah. The other thing I forgot to mention, all of the internet golf balls, right? Which I guess they're not internet golf balls because they're they're available in retail now too. But like the Vice Golfs of the world, tried all of them. And for a while they were like, I was like, these are good, right? Like they perform well, they feel okay. And then I realized they're not durable. And that killed it for me. Like if I like one like nice wedge shot and I would have fish gills on the cover. Like it would cut into it. So I was just like, these are not it. And so I unfortunately at that point had bought like 5 boxes and I was like, well, let me see how fast I can offload these and or lose them in the woods.
Now there is one golf brand that is really coming up. And if I were going back to your question, if I were to try something brand new without knowing what it's like, I'm actually curious about the Max Fly tours. They've been getting really, really great reviews, a lot of comparisons to the Pro V1s. So yeah, if I had to try something brand new that was not a Pro V, it wasn't, the Callaway, I think I would try the Max Fly tours. And from a cost standpoint as well, they're a lot more affordable too anyways. Because I think for them, like a dozen, it's like $30 or like $35. Whereas the Pro Vs are now, what, $55 a dozen?
Yeah, it's getting up to 60.
Yeah. So it's like half the price. So if they're performing very similarly, I could see myself playing that just from a cost standpoint. Actually, I'm sorry. I wouldn't play that just from a cost standpoint, but if I had to try something brand new, I would definitely try them out.
Nice. Okay. So to review, TaylorMade, Titleist for me. For you.
Yeah, I jump around a little bit more, but it'd be actually surprisingly, there's a lot of TaylorMade there.
Yeah, there's actually a lot. I was going to say that you actually said TaylorMade quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't always number one, but it's driver TaylorMade, Mizuno, TaylorMade, Lab, Titleist. But even putter, like TaylorMade was there. And even for irons, I was like, Game Improvement, P790s. Man, their marketing is working on me.
It's
Hey everyone, welcome to the Off TRAQ podcast, where we talk all things golf from an amateur point of view. I'm Charles. That's Roy. We're two golf-obsessed tech guys, and we're currently working on our own golf company. Make sure to click subscribe or follow on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And also follow us on our socials at TRAQ Golf on Instagram and TikTok.
All right. So this week in golf, Rory McIlroy, somebody's favorite golfer, actually withdrew from the Arnold Palmer Invitational with a back injury. Right? I think he said it was back spasms right before the Players. McIlroy withdrew Saturday before his third round at Bay Hill, and this was his first tournament withdrawal in 13 years. He said he's coming back for the Players Championship this year, and it was just back spasms. I mean, I relate. I get it. I'm just like Rory. I had back spasms today. Mine was from picking up my child and not from playing a professional golf, but same. How do you feel with your favorite player having back spasms going into the Players Championship?
I mean, have you heard of load management? I think this is Rory doing load management. I mean, he didn't injure his back. He felt like stiffness and he had a little bit of like back spasms. So it sounded very cautionary. Although he did have back issues in the past. I think it was 2016, 17. Oh, that far.
I think it was that far, yeah.
And his swing is very demanding. For someone of his height and stature to be able to hit that far, I would know, right? Being the same height as Rory, but it's a very demanding swing. And I think that was one of, when we talk about Tiger, like his swing was also very demanding and it ended up breaking him down. So I'd like to see this more as load management for Rory. It's not something to take too seriously, but it's a great excuse, right? It works in the NBA, right? I think Kawhi Leonard he should file a patent for how he has been able to use load management to play half the season and still get paid his full salary. I think it's just that he is looking ahead to bigger tournaments. And if there is just even a minor discomfort, I think it makes sense for him, especially at his age now. He is, even though he's not super old, he is almost a senior statesman compared to some of the other players. And so I think his priorities should be major championships, FedEx Cups, the signature events.
That makes sense. We'll see. We'll see how often this back spasm comes up in the future now that I don't know, maybe he's finished his career Grand Slam, right? He wants more, but we'll see. Yeah. We'll see where we end up this year.
And I think this is a perfect segue to the fact that he is getting ready to play in what should be the 5th major on the PGA Tour.
Before we get into that, though,
as always, today's episode is brought to you by TRAQ Golf, the training system designed to help you practice like the pros. The TRAQ spray shows you exact strike patterns on turf or grass. It also allows you to do drills just like the pros that you wouldn't dream of doing with alignment sticks. And the blueprint? It helps you build structure into every session. Together, they take the guesswork out of practice so you can actually improve faster. Find out more at traqgolf.com. That's TRAQ golf.com.
All right. As we heard before our little sponsor break there, Rory is load managing his way into the Players Championship. And, it's funny because the PGA Tour literally ran an ad campaign called March is Going to be Major. It is March. We are going into the Players Championship, one of, I would say, top 5 tournaments of the year for a lot of people, but decidedly not a major, right? But the tour isn't hiding what they want. They're pushing for it. They're saying they deserve this. So the question is, does the players deserve it? Who even gets to decide what is a major at this point? But want to hear your take as the modern entry into golf.
Yeah, for me, I absolutely think it should be considered a major. And I think it's not surprising that with the new president of the PGA Tour coming from the NFL, he wants to create more marquee events, right? And so I think it makes sense from a calendar standpoint. I think it makes sense from the fact that this is probably one of the best fields in golf. Also from a dollar per standpoint, it is one of the richest tournaments. And also the fact that it has one of the most iconic courses. I think if you go to a casual golfer and you show him the par 3 at TPC Sawgrass 17, like that is recognizable. And I don't think you can say that about that many courses. And I am actually a big fan of being able to play. I know a lot of the other majors switch locations around, right? But I'm actually a fan of there being a few more tournaments or majors where it is one set course year in and year out. And I think having two really kind of plays into just awareness of the course garners casual viewers' interest. So yeah, for me, I think this is a no-brainer and they should make this into a 5th major.
But what does that even mean? Like having a 5th major, right? So obviously, surprise, surprise, I'm taking the more traditional route. Like there is something prestigious about there being 4 majors, right? And all of the calculation of the number of majors that people have won. Because even when we talk like today, when we talk about, who has the most wins on the PGA, right? What's the answer is, well, Sam Snead and Tiger Woods. But there's an asterisk, right? And you always point out this asterisk, or not always, but you have pointed out this asterisk in the back because it's like, well, it was a weaker field. It was smaller, I would hate to see, let's go forward 15 years, where now there's 5 majors and all of a sudden there's like people are winning them, there's literally 25% more up for grabs. And it's like somebody's like, oh yeah, they have like 14 majors. They're the 3rd best right behind Tiger. I think the comparison and like what the number means and like the prestige of how many people have won, it just gets diluted a little bit. So I'm a hard no on adding a 5th major.
Well, for me, I feel like you're already not comparing apples to apples when you're talking about different eras and the greatest of all time, things like that. And I think also for every other major league, the argument of how to become a champion has consistently become like harder, for example, right? But in golf, more than that, there's been major equipment changes. There's been major course changes. Field sizes have just gotten larger. Globalization of the game and international players being a part of this has become much more frequent in the last, 2 decades. And so you're already not comparing apples to apples. So why does it matter if there is one more major? And right now, if you talk about the greatest of all time, right? Like for us, it's Tiger. If you want, you can include his PGA Championship wins for comparison's sake, right? We're not going to suddenly say that he has, more than 15 majors. But if you wanted to compare someone like a Scottie Scheffler at the end of his career,
right? And
I think it's very easy to be like, well, Tiger also played in the PGA Championship and here are his wins. Let's compare them now and try to make it closer to apples to apples as possible.
Twice. Tiger won the Players twice.
Okay.
So he would be at 17. So one more and he ties Jack Striker. But the Players started in 70 something, right? So Jack must have played it. I don't know how many times Jack won it. I mean, like, look, this is really interesting and fun for like hypotheticals. And, for the golf nerds that sit there and have these like long protracted debates about who is the best and why, and they pull out all the stats, like, yeah, this is actually really interesting, but I don't know. Fifth major just feels weird. I think I've said this before. I'm a fan of the Players Championship, right? Like you said, it's a huge tournament, right? It is arguably the most competitive tournament of the year, right? For other reasons, the Masters obviously has its prestige, but it's not this. The US Open, one of the toughest setups, but not every like top 50 golfer shows up. Although now the Players with the Live split, like a few of the top 10 golfers aren't even there technically. And then the Open Championship Golfer of the Year, again, not as competitive of a field, but competitive from like what it is and the links style golf and all of that. The one that I don't care for compared to thinking about the 5 that we're talking about is the PGA Championship.
Hmm.
I actually don't care for it in comparison. I actually think the Players Championship is more exciting than the PGA Championship. So if we wanted to say, hey, the fourth major starting in 2027 is the Players Championship. And again, there's no governing body that decides this. So this would literally be like the entire world, golf world just has to all of a sudden agree that this is a thing. Yeah, for me, it's like I would rather see the Players Championship count moving forward as the fourth major. And to me, that would actually be significantly more exciting than the PGA Championship.
Now, what is interesting about this is that the organizers of all the 4 major tournaments in golf, the PGA Tour does not organize any of them. And so I can see how, as the new president coming in, he wants to control a major. So I think it makes sense that the tour is pushing the players to be the 5th major. But my one, I think, like you said, no one decides what is a major tournament, right? There's no governing body that does that. But one of the things that I think is really important is how do the players treat it? And I would argue that the players treat this as a major championship. The money is there. I think the prestige is there. And if also like going back historically, there are some times where even like winning the players, like the reaction that you get from golfers, it felt like a major. And so I think in the minds of most, it's already a major. So why not just make it a major? I don't see as big of a downside, to be honest. And I think if it's the conversation of then, who has the most majors, like I think that's something that you can get to it when that conversation gets to it. And again, it's not apples to apples anyways. Like I still struggle to see the big downside of there being a 5th major. And because for me, calendar wise, it kind of works out perfectly, right? Because Players is in March. We have the Masters in April. There's a major tournament every month. And I think if you want casual fans to at least check in once a month, that also works out from a scheduling standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, what do you lose? You lose history. You lose tradition. You lose the culture of the game and upholding such a game with strong tradition. Just, I mean, do I have a more substantive answer other than like it just feels gross to say that there's a major? No, but it feels gross, and for me, like that is enough. But I do agree with the points about the Players Championship, right? Like the competitiveness, how they treat it. I remember 2015, right? This is already like over 10 years ago, but I remember when Ricky Fowler won the Players Championship. And it was such a big deal because he still doesn't have any majors, but they treated it as if he had won one, right? And it was this like, Ricky is finally like paying off on the promise of like what he was supposed to deliver, right? Like Ricky, Michelle Wee, Sergio, whoever, like just never amounting to what they were supposed to. Ironically, Ricky beat Sergio in that playoff to win it. But yes, I think there's something about the Players Championship that does have the prestige. And I would agree with it is treated as a major. I just don't want a 5th. I actually don't care if it's the Players. I just think there should not be a 5th major. So if you would say get rid of one of the other ones and put the Players Championship in, I'm all for it. But there's only one right answer on which one you replace it with, because you should never touch the Masters, never touch the Open, and US Open is, you can't argue with me that is not a major.
I mean, but if you really want to go back to tradition, and I don't really see how this affects culture, but I could see the traditionalists' arguments, right? But if you really want tradition, then why weren't more traditionalists upset when the equipment's changed? Should we go back to just playing persimmon clubs, right? And the golf ball, I mean, I guess they're kind of doing that right now, right? That they're
arguing for it.
Not only arguing, it's made into the bylaws. The rollback is happening for sure. But I feel like the traditionalists, and don't feel like I'm attacking you, Roy, but the traditionalists kind of pick where they want to be traditionalists, and they don't apply it to the entire game as a whole.
Yeah, that's different. That's apples and oranges, right? The game will evolve. The tournaments themselves evolve. But which tournament is considered the major and the cultural and psychological importance that's placed on it, that's not going to evolve. Or you're not going to tell me in 100 years the Masters isn't the Masters. The Masters will remain exactly what it is today. They may be playing it differently, right? They may, God knows what technology will have happened by then where, and what they'll do to combat it. But And it's funny, maybe this is a complete separate thing altogether, but there was actually a clip that I saw of Brandel Chambly on 4Play Pod. I don't know if you saw that, where he was like, I take back everything that I've said about the ball. Like, they don't need to roll it back. I was like, I almost threw my phone. I was like, this guy like literally spent a decade saying it needs to be rolled back. But anyway, that feel, that vibe, that prestige, the honor that comes from winning the Masters, that will not go away. Right? How they play it, the equipment they use, who wins, all of that will change. The green jacket will be the exact same shade of green in 100 years as it is today. Right? Like, those are the things that I think speak to like the history, the storied history of some of these tournaments. And those are the things that I don't think we should be willing to walk away.
I don't think it can be for certain said that the Masters is going to be around in 100 years. The Masters hasn't been around for 100 years even today. They were not a major 100 years ago in golf, but they became a major in 1934, right? And so...
yeah, you're going to argue with me over 8 years.
No, but I feel like, okay, like if I had to like look at the majors, I would agree with you that it's probably the PGA Championship that would get replaced. The Masters, like we've talked about, right, is just so iconic that I could see it not changing. But 100 years from now, like, you don't know where the major golf power is going to be. If the PIF get their way, it might not be the US Open anymore. It might be the Middle East Open in 100 years, right? And so for me, I'm not so married to the idea that the majors cannot change.
That's fair. Or I get what you're saying. And the only reason they changed originally was because the first 4 majors was in the era where golfers were not professionals. Right. So this is like the Bobby Jones era before he founded the Masters, where it was like you had to win the US Open, the British Amateur, and the US Amateur. And that was considered the 4 majors because to be a golfer was to be an amateur back then. And then as professional golf took off. So to your point, there are major things that can happen culturally. And you're right. I would say if there is anything, what's happening with LIV and the PIF and however many more billions of dollars they're willing to throw into the game of golf, that's probably going to have the most impact or has the potential for the most impact. But I don't know. I think now we have enough history where we're pretty rooted. So I would say maybe we're not going to change too much over the next 100 years.
Well, I guess I am curious though, because you did say iron technology is going to change, driver technology is going to change. Ball technology, obviously, it's not going to change because we're rolling it back. But why are you okay with iron and driver technology changing, for example? Because then the sport itself, I would argue, changes. It's no longer the golf that it was. And there were a lot of people that did argue that with modern technology, that it was a different game of golf, right? And so why are you okay with equipment changing and evolving over time, but not the majors?
I think I'm okay with equipment changing up to a certain degree, right? So I started playing when it was already metal woods, right? It was already a cavity backs. It wasn't, the niblets or whatever they were called. And we had graphite shafts and steel shafts that were very reliable and consistent. So there's an element of it, of when I was introduced to the game, that didn't ever feel like an evolution. I think there will be more evolution, and I am okay with it because I think the rules to limit how much it changes on the club side, right? Like smash factor, there's a maximum smash factor that any club is allowed to have, right? On a perfect strike, if it goes over a 1.5, it is deemed illegal. There's a maximum size. There's so all of the technology advances that are happening now, you could argue are within a realm of the sandbox is defined. There's only so much you can do within the sandbox that's not going to fundamentally change it. Like if they came out and they said, hey, we discovered this completely new material that is neither graphite or steel. We can make shafts out of it and it doubles the length that a club goes. I'd be like, no, absolutely not. It can't do that. Because, and like you're saying, it fundamentally changes the game in too aggressive of a way. And I just wasn't around for when they did that between the persimmons up until now. But I think for what I know, I would still like to preserve the game as much as I can from where it is as I know it today.
Let's take a very specific example for argument's sake. So carbon face, right? Or let's even say twist face, right? They were able to use that because there were no rules specifically limiting them from doing that. And so as long as they find loopholes or things that are not already defined in the rules right now, then technically they can stretch. And that's what equipment makers have been doing for the last 2 decades, is stretching the limit by attacking the gray areas.
Finding a new rule to exploit. or a rule that doesn't exist. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I feel like it is possible that in 100 years, an iron and a driver might be very different than it looks today. And it does look very different, those equipments today than it did 3 decades ago, right? And so I feel like the argument of tradition is a bit of a hindrance that golfers have to adopting what could be, I would consider more like innovation. And I think I'm also kind of a little peeved about the ball rollback, but I feel like that is one of those cases where they do have some good arguments about, you can't stretch the course out any further, but athletes are also just getting stronger, right? If you look across the board at athleticism across every sport, they are stronger, faster, their bodies are more durable. And so it just makes sense that a stronger golfer is going to be able to hit the ball further, right? And so now they're trying to fight that by limiting what can be in the ball. And I think that's one of those areas where they use tradition as one of the arguments. And I don't love that argument. And also, if the players become a major, I don't think that would necessarily erase history. History is still there. The number of majors that Tiger has won and up to this point is still there. And I don't think it really changes that much moving forward historically. Can you expand a little bit on why, from a history standpoint, you think it changes anything?
Okay, so let's say that the players is a major. How many majors has Tiger won?
He's won 15 majors. But let's say for argument's sake, Scotty Scheffler gets to 15 majors, including the Players' Championship, right?
After they're deemed majors. And let's say he gets to 15. People that are going to argue are going to then say, well, then let's include Tiger's Players' Championship wins. And so he has more than Scotty, right? It's very simple debate. Or let's say that Scotty Scheffler wins 10 Players' Championships, right? Then when you argue, you say, okay, let's take those out then because Tiger, we're not counting Tiger's major wins in the Players. There are ways to make debates closer to apples. It's never going to get there, but it's simply just math. And so I don't think it really hurts that debate all that much. What about Jack? He won it 3 times, but twice was before the modern interpretation of it, where it was at TPC Sawgrass.
I mean, right now with Jack, there's already such a gap, I think, in the debate over field equipment that it's so hard to make it apples to apples anyways, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue to debate history.
Yeah. I think this is all for the sake of debate, right? Do I really care? No, because does it have a material impact on my life? Absolutely not. That said, there's obviously this group of golfers, the traditionalists, right, myself included, where we just want to see the game be what it has been for the last 100 years, right? Why is that so wrong? Why does everybody beat up on that so much of no, evolve, or you're being hypocritical? And I'm not saying that's what you're saying necessarily, although that's what you said. But it's why can't the people who just want to see it remain this memorable thing? And I get there's a lot of bad things that come with that too, but put it up on a pedestal a little bit and let it just live there and let it just be completely fine on that pedestal. Why do we have to force it to evolve?
I think the game needs to evolve because today the game is competing for attention with every other sport. And so if you want there to be continued growth of the game, right? And part of the growth requires people to watch the game. And in order to do that and stay relevant as one of the major sports of this world, I think it has to evolve. And I think that's the only reason why sports ever evolves, right? Every major sport has evolved. They don't look like the way that they did 50 years ago. Some don't even look like the way they did 10 years ago, right? Like in basketball, there was no 3-point line before the 80s. That completely changed strategy. Football probably changes the rules every single year. It's a different game every single year.
With football rules, yeah.
Yeah, even baseball, they've had to evolve after fighting tradition for so long. And I think baseball is the biggest or the closest example because they also talk tradition a lot.
Yeah.
Football, there's tradition, but the game has changed so much. Basketball, same thing. There's been, depending on who the icon of the era is, the game has completely changed. Before it was a big man game with guys like Shaq and Kareem. Now it's a point guard 3-point shooting game, right? But baseball stayed very consistent throughout. And so tradition was spoken as very similar to, I think, how tradition is spoken in golf, but it was becoming irrelevant. And I fear that if golf doesn't evolve, it's also going to eventually become irrelevant to the next generation that's coming up.
I could see that. I also don't know that the game necessarily needs to grow that much more than it already has, but that's a completely separate topic altogether.
As I'm saying that, I'm like, wait a second, but if the game grows more, it's going to be tougher to find tee times.
Yes. And it was 100% where my mind went. It's like, it's already impossible to grab a tee time in Los Angeles.
I know.
All right. Well, whether it's considered a major or not, good luck to the people at the Players Championship this year. Looking forward to seeing how the tournament goes. And for our listeners, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite podcast platforms. And check out our Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at TRAQ Golf. That's enough getting off track. May your mulligans be many and your 3 putts be few.